Prepare to have your perception of modern aerial combat shattered, as we reveal how the F-35 Lightning II rewrote the rules of engagement in the skies over Iran. For decades, critics had labeled the Lockheed Martin F-35 Lightning II a trillion-dollar failure. They dismissed it as too heavy, too slow, too expensive, and excessively complicated. America's adversaries even built entire defense networks banking on the F-35 never truly living up to its ambitious promises. Then the war in Iran began, and the F-35 took to the skies. In the span of just 1 month, the Lightning II completely rewrote the rules of aerial engagement. It achieved silent air-to-air kills, intercepted a drone over the ocean, and even survived a direct surface-to-air missile hit that would have taken out other jets. It should have silenced its doubters once and for all. Yet the F-35 program was plagued with controversy from its inception. Long before these jets ever flew a combat mission, military analysts and defense experts universally echoed the same criticisms. They decried this fifth-generation fighter as a colossal waste of money, dismissing its stealth features as mere marketing gimmicks and its technical specifications as hollow buzzwords. They accused the Pentagon of squandering $1 trillion on an overweight jet that, they claimed, couldn't even win a dogfight against much older and cheaper adversaries. Iran, meanwhile, had prepared for a very different kind of air war. They invested heavily in so-called stealth-killing radar systems and agile light fighters, convinced that if they could force American pilots into visual range, an F-35 would be an effortless target. But this entire premise was built on a fundamentally flawed understanding. Critics of the F-35 had completely misunderstood its true purpose. The F-35 is not a conventional fighter jet. It is a flying supercomputer. It's a next-level aircraft, with the unparalleled ability to see and hear the enemy long before they even know it's there. It functions as a flying information sponge, vacuuming up intelligence and instantly sharing it with other allied aircraft, providing critical data like targeting telemetry to keep them perpetually ahead of threats. Iran braced for a traditional dogfighting knife fight, but the United States had built a next-generation killing machine designed to ensure such a dogfight never actually happens. The opening weeks of the war in Iran would prove just how lethal this machine truly is. March 4, 2026. This was the day everything Iran thought it knew about the F-35 completely unraveled. In the early hours of the morning, an Iranian pilot flew his standard patrol route in a Yakovlev Yak-130, meticulously scouring the skies above Tehran, watching and waiting for any faint hint of Israeli or American forces. The Yak-130's sensors remained silent. He saw nothing. Yet, he was more than ready to engage any enemy aircraft that might appear. Developed in Russia, the Yak-130 is a subsonic, two-seater fighter that first flew in 1996, historically serving as both a jet trainer and light combat aircraft. While never intended to rival a fifth-generation stealth fighter head-on, even an older jet over Tehran could still pose a threat during an active strikes mission. It carries a combat load of approximately 3,000 kilograms, which can include precision-guided bombs, rockets, and air-to-air missiles. Famed for its maneuverability and strong thrust-to-weight ratio, the Yak-130's raw agility could give it an edge in a visual-range dogfight, even against some more modern and expensive aircraft. Moreover, even if it couldn't win a direct dogfight, it could still alert nearby surface-to-air missile batteries and ground teams to swarm an intruder. At least that was Iran's belief. But that belief was about to face its ultimate test. Dozens of kilometers away, a squadron of Israeli Air Force pilots was on its way towards Tehran. Their mission, to penetrate deep into enemy territory and strike critical Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps command centers. Leading the charge were Israeli F-35I Adirs, known as Mighty Ones. Built upon the standard F-35, this model features Israel's own electronic warfare systems layered over the existing avionics, adding unique functionality. The pilots wear specialized helmets that track their head movements, projecting a 360-degree digital map of the battlefield in real time. Relying on their fighters' world-leading stealth capabilities, the Israeli pilots drew closer to their targets, completely undetected by the Yak-130 pilot. The technological gap between these two fighters was immense. The Yak-130 relied on active radar, which, when engaged, was the equivalent of shining a spotlight directly at the enemy. The moment the Iranian pilot activated his radar and sent radio waves into the sky, he broadcast his exact location to everyone observing. In contrast, the Adirs did not need to blast active radar to find the Yak-130. While their radar-absorbent coatings and internal weapons bays rendered them invisible on Iranian screens, their true strength lay in passive detection. This allowed them to track enemy radar emissions without emitting any signals of their own. The F-35 was silently listening as the Yak-130 unwittingly screamed its location into the void. Soaring stealthily towards Tehran, the Israeli fighters spotted and locked onto the Iranian Yak-130. An Adir pilot launched a beyond visual range missile. It dropped from its internal bay and tore through the sky at Mach 4. The Yak-130's rudimentary sensors remained dark until the final few seconds when the missile's active seeker went live. By then, it was far too late. A blinding impact and explosion, and the Russian-made plane evaporated in a fireball. The Yak-130 was no more. This marked the first time in 40 years that Israel had taken out an enemy aircraft, and the first ever manned air-to-air kill for the F-35 program. This was no traditional dogfight, devoid of mid-air maneuvers or reliance on pilot reaction times. It was a stark battle between cutting-edge stealth and legacy hardware, the future versus the past, resulting in an invisible execution. From this moment on, the F-35 would have to be taken far more seriously. However, no matter how significant the technological advantage, war is never a flawless game. The F-35 had unequivocally disproved its doubters, demonstrating it could achieve precisely what its designers had envisioned years ago. It penetrated enemy airspace undetected, covered hundreds of kilometers of hostile terrain, soaring past radars and defensive systems to close in on a hostile nation's capital, and eliminated an enemy fighter that remained oblivious until its final moments. In the days that followed, confidence in this aircraft soared. It seemed the F-35 was destined to rule the skies for the remainder of the conflict, the uncontested king of Iranian airspace. But then came a day that changed everything once again. March 19, a United States Air Force F-35A was flying a combat mission over central Iran. Like the Israeli Adirs, it utilized its advanced avionics and stealth technologies to evade detection. Iran, growing desperate after experiencing the F-35's full force, knew they needed to deploy every tool at their disposal to avoid complete aerial annihilation. They deployed a more sophisticated air defense battery, likely relying on passive infrared sensing rather than radar, to find and track the F-35A. The Iranians were laying a trap, and it was only a matter of time until they caught a glimpse of their elusive target. When they finally did, ground-based air defenses launched missiles into the night sky, hoping one would be lucky enough to find its mark. A blinding flash of kinetic energy ripped through the darkness as one missile impacted the rear of the aircraft. When most aircraft are struck by missiles, they face an inevitable fate. Controls go dead, engines fail, and the pilot is forced to eject, watching their plane descend in a blazing fireball. But that didn't happen here. This was precisely where the trillion-dollar F-35 project proved its worth. This jet is not built like the rest. Its airframe is a complex skeleton of carbon fiber composites and titanium, meticulously designed to absorb catastrophic kinetic shocks that would tear a less advanced plane apart. The moment the F-35 took shrapnel, its digital flight control computers instantly activated. They compensated for the physical damage, bypassing compromised components and making the necessary micro-adjustments to keep the physically wounded aircraft airborne. Warning sirens blared in the cockpit as the jet bled fuel, its stealth advantage compromised. Yet the pilot remained in his seat, able to guide the crippled jet back to base for an emergency landing. Iran immediately claimed to have shot down an American stealth fighter, but this was no fighter jet going up in flames or being blown out of the air. The F-35 was damaged, yes, but not eliminated. It remained intact and controllable, making a safe landing, ready to be repaired, refueled, and redeployed for future strikes. While Iran celebrated a significant propaganda victory, the U.S. military had silently demonstrated that the F-35 could survive some of Tehran's fiercest attacks and still return to base. Nevertheless, after the March 19 incident, the U.S. commanders took a step back to consider the broader implications. They had witnessed the F-35's extraordinary effectiveness throughout the conflict, but now faced the undeniable reality that Iran was, at the very least, capable of firing at and damaging these advanced jets. With each F-35 valued in excess of $80 million, the U.S. Air Force was keen to avoid any more needless damage or destruction of these vital assets. Iran had shifted the playbook, and it was time for the U.S. to adapt. By early April, the F-35 transitioned into its most lethal form. The F-35 wasn't designed just for dogfights, launching missiles, or dropping bombs. It is fundamentally a forward sensor node, capable of gathering extraordinary amounts of data far beyond the capacities of conventional or previous generation aircraft. U.S. commanders recognized that even without directly inflicting damage, the F-35 could be the crucial key to America's next moves. An invaluable information station, stealthily supplying us a stream of real-time data to Allied units from deep behind enemy lines. The F-35 would now become a critical link in the larger kill chain, providing the intelligence that other aircraft and missile launch teams needed to eliminate their targets, one by one, with ruthless efficiency. And in the war with Iran, there were plenty of targets. The country's regime had been preparing for this conflict for decades, investing heavily in air defense systems. They had established both stationary and mobile surface-to-air missile batteries across their vast territory, with radars operating around the clock, constantly scanning the surrounding land and sky for kilometers around, ready to act at the first sign of danger. Then along came the Lightning II. Traveling at a peak speed of Mach 1.6, or approximately 1,930 kilometers per hour, it soared deep into enemy airspace, seeking out and pinpointing the exact locations of the enemy's air defense systems, feeding that data back to the rest of the force. Its mission was not to destroy the launchers on its own. Opening internal weapons bays to drop a bomb momentarily compromises an aircraft's stealth profile, allowing Iranian radars to detect the anomaly and launch missiles. A smart hunter never exposes himself if he can get someone else to pull the trigger. The F-35 didn't need to linger. Its advanced radars and avionics could paint a clear map of the Iranian air defense envelope. After mapping emitters and identifying launcher locations, the F-35's work was effectively done. It could swiftly retreat to a safe distance, while other assets outside the immediate danger zone took over. This could involve Tomahawk missile launchers, standoff air-launched weapons, electronic warfare, decoys, or a combination of these. The F-35 provided the crucial data. It was then up to the rest of the force to act on that data to eliminate the threat. This is how you dismantle the complex surface-to-air missile networks that countries like Iran have spent generations piecing together. It's not through a head-on charge, attempting to overwhelm the opposition and accepting losses along the way. It's through precise data and by painting targets onto those SAM sites. The F-35's stealth technologies allow it to approach closer than any other aircraft could without being detected and shot down in minutes. Its sensors can see and map the landscape with peerless accuracy. Its communication systems enable it to share everything it finds with other aircraft, tanks, ships, and USUNSUN. And its clever, intuitive, forward-thinking design ensures the pilot isn't overwhelmed by data, but instead receives the exact information and assistance needed to get in and out safely and swiftly. This was one of the biggest oversights F-35 critics made when dissecting the program. They believed the F-35 had to be a world-leading dogfighter to justify its lofty price tag. But today's battlefields have evolved. The skies are no longer dominated by the aircraft capable of the sharpest turns or fastest evasive maneuvers. Instead, they reward the system that can acquire the right data at the right time and utilize it effectively to gain an insurmountable edge over its adversary. That is precisely what the F-35 was built for, and the war in Iran has unequivocally proven its perfect construction for this task. The world didn't have to wait until late March to witness the F-35's incredible flexibility in action. Evidence that this jet was far more than a simple dogfighter existed even before the war had begun. February 3, a Nimitz-class aircraft carrier, the USS Abraham Lincoln, glided through the waters of the Arabian Sea. The surrounding waters were quiet, but the carrier buzzed with activity. Something had been spotted on the Abraham Lincoln's radar screens. An Iranian Shahed 139 drone headed straight for the carrier strike group, similar in style to the US-owned MQ-1 Predator. This was no cheap one-way kamikaze toy. It was a medium-altitude, long-range reconnaissance and strike platform designed to loiter, drop its precision-guided munitions like Sadid 345 or Qiyam glide bombs to annihilate high-value targets, and then retreat back to base. With a reported range of over 1,930 kilometers and a flight endurance of up to 24 hours, the Shahed 139 represented a serious threat, now headed directly for an American aircraft carrier with several thousand personnel and billions of dollars in military assets on board. In the past, the Navy would have relied on a destroyer's Aegis combat system to spot such a threat. praying they could eliminate it in the frantic final seconds before impact. Alternatively, they might scramble a legacy FC-18 Hornet for a high-stress, close-range intercept. But now, there was another option. The USS Abraham Lincoln launched a Marine Corps F-35C into the air, the carrier variant of the F-35 featuring larger wings and heavier landing gear. Thanks to its onboard distributed aperture system and powerful radar technologies, the F-35 didn't need to rely on the carrier for tracking data. It could detect, track, and engage airborne threats with a level of situational awareness older carrier aircraft could never provide. The Shahed 139 had a peak speed of approximately 220 kilometers per hour, meaning it could make contact with the carrier in a matter of minutes. There was no time to waste. Every second the drone remained airborne, it moved one step closer to the strike group, one step closer to becoming a real operational threat, and one step closer to forcing a much more dangerous response. But it never got that chance. The F-35 reached firing position, the pilot committed, and in a flash the intercept was over. The blip on the radar screen vanished. The threat was gone before the drone ever even glimpsed the supercarrier's wake. This is the true power of the F-35, and it is precisely why the decade-old criticisms against it completely fall flat. Critics judged the aircraft by outdated standards, basing their beliefs on dogfighting rules that simply no longer apply. Over land, it can delve deep into enemy airspace and dismantle air defense networks piece by piece. In the air, it has already achieved a historic first victory against a manned aircraft, with more undoubtedly to follow. And it accomplishes all this while remaining not only one of the most advanced aircraft in existence today, but also one of the most survivable. Even after enduring a direct missile strike from a ground-based system, it proved more than capable of holding itself together for the flight back to base and a safe emergency landing. The F-35 was never designed to be just another turning jet. It was built to connect the entire battlespace, to see through the fog of war, acting as the stealthy, all-seeing eye of the American strike package. Iran had spent years preparing for threats it thought it understood. But now, the advantage belongs to whoever sees first, understands first, reacts first, and kills first. That is the world the F-35 was built for, and the results are clear to see.